Right. And we're here for another episode of Entering the Sports World with Ryan Stacey, who is a owner of Stats Coach and owner or host of the Hockey Minds podcast, and he is the analytics director for the Sarnia Sting. Thank you for coming on, Ryan.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm used to doing the interviews on the other side, asking the questions on my podcast, so it's nice to get on the other side for once.
Yeah, for sure. So since you are from Newfoundland, I want to wonder why you chose Brock University.
Yeah, so when I was looking at opportunities, I looked at local universities like Memorial and some programs out east like UNB and other programs like that. But once I seen the Brock program and the diversity in it and the different aspects of sports that it taught you, it was a no-brainer to look into that program. And when I applied and successfully applied, I was excited to go Niagara. It's just outside of Toronto too, so for hockey and volunteer opportunities, it was just a great fit, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time there.
Yeah. So when you went to Brock, was there anything that you found, like opportunities you found that other students could probably get into now?
Yeah, I mean, any kind of junior B, junior A volunteer opportunities, the Brock program does a pretty good job of, gauging interest in the industry and relaying it to the students. Personally, I did a couple of opportunities there in Niagara. I was with the junior B Thorold Blackhawks, the junior B Niagara Falls Canucks, and also did some senior A, which not a lot of people get to do that, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, any kind of local teams are always looking for volunteers, whether it's game day. Sometimes you'll get lucky enough to get in hockey operations. Could be just, simple data tracking or, scouting if they're looking for that kind of thing. But there's always different entry points to working in these teams. So, I encourage people just to reach out to your local teams, and, they're not going to turn away help if that's what you're looking to do.
Do you find you get different looks because you are a younger person trying to break into the sports world where it's traditionally a lot of older men?
Yeah, so in that regard, I kind of look to gauge ideas from different people. I reach out to older executives, people who have been in the industry a bit longer. One of I would call him a mentor at this stage, Glenn Stanford here in Newfoundland. Get ideas from those people, but also, in the Brock program, there's a lot of great minds around you, and these are the people that are breaking into the industry and from other schools, Lambton and near Sarnia and all these different places. So, you just try to meet as many people and interact with people of different degrees of ages and experiences. And, sometimes you get into an interview or you're talking with someone and, they might be looking for some more experience or maybe they're just looking for a different skill set. But overall, I don't think the age is too bad a factor. I've tried my best to get experience from a young age and multiple experiences over the last couple of years. So maybe I'm a little bit ahead where I thought I would be. So maybe that helps in the long run. But no, overall, people are pretty good. And if you have the skill set and you present yourself in the right way, they're not, too worried about the age.
For sure. So one thing I think you've done very well that I admire is you've started your own way of tracking analytics and all that. And one of those ways is through Stats Coach. Do you want to kind of give a breakdown to the viewers of what Stats Coach is all about?
So basically, Stats Coach is an analytics company I started. We kind of just work with minor hockey players. At the minor level, people aren't as accessible for information like that. And there's certain players, it's not always the full team or, even players at the highest level, but sometimes different players, whether they be anywhere from house league to AAA or entering junior, maybe their first year. They're interested in gaining that extra information, which isn't always available. So it's more of it's a symptomatic approach. Like it's nothing too advanced, but it breaks down harder concepts and brings them to people that are just, using analytics for the first time and pinpointing parts of their game that maybe they didn't see as a downfall, or sometimes it's even a strength. I'm also looking for strengths in their game and backing up things that they're doing right. So there's always these little parts of the game that they just want to evaluate, and at the minor hockey level, you don't always get the opportunity. So that's basically where Stats Coach came from. It's all done through video. I found that was the best way, and it's been a fun experience so far. The people that have reached out and the people that I've worked with have been very interested in it and willing to listen. to different parts. And when I look at a player who's gone through stats coach and they're on the ice for a few games, it's exciting to see the changes they're making, and then obviously the better results that they're getting.
That's cool because I can remember me playing minor hockey. One year we videotaped like all the games and we posted to YouTube. And I remember watching the one game and this goalie he couldn't stop a puck on his glove side. So the next game we played him, I just kept shooting glove side and kept going in.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear that somebody actually just came up with a whole website to base that around. Now, was that something you always thought about doing from like when you played minor hockey or?
Yeah, well, me playing minor hockey, I was never an elite player. I played at a lower level most of my playing days, but once I got into scouting and with the Brock program, player development is something that really enticed me and something that I started to learn more about. And then when I got a little bit of analytic work behind me and kind of seeing how they can be fused together, that's ultimately where Stats Coach came about, and working with players in that player development role while utilizing analytics at the same time.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems to be about, is making your own experience and then passing it on. Same with making your own experience. You've also, as we mentioned earlier, a host of your own podcast. Was that something that just kind of came from the boredom of quarantine, or was it something you've always wanted to do, like since you started going into the industry?
Yeah, so with that, it was a perfect opportunity with quarantine. I had some downtime, and I was making calls and having conversations with people in the industry anyway, and I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And a lot of these people gave great advice, and it helped me along the way. And then in turn, after I did a newsletter with Jack Hand there a month or so ago, people were reaching out to me the same way. So to me, it just made sense to kind of give back a little bit and have these people come on the podcast and share their experiences, which I've heard before, but other people may not have the opportunity, whether, this is the right place, right time, or they don't have the means of connecting with them. So that's ultimately where that idea came about. And, we're in 4 or 5 episodes now, and we have more people lined up, and it's been a lot of fun. And, there's nothing wrong with talking hockey, especially when there's a break into play here.
Coming back from quarantine, what do you think is going to be harder for a player to transition coming back from it? A forward, defenseman, or a goalie?
That's an interesting question. I'm sure everybody's going to have their, minor difficulties or just getting back to the pace of the game. I don't know. I mean, maybe a goalie. Goalies are very, they like repetition. You like getting multiple starts and getting in that rhythm. So you might see a little delay at the very beginning, just, shaking some rust off kind of thing. But, whether it be at the junior level or in the NHL coming back, these guys are the best of the best. And I'm sure once they get on the ice and, they've been working hard in the off season. And you look at the junior players, especially like guys in Sarnia, they're working every day to perfect their craft. And while there will be some rust, I think, a couple games down the road, it'll be, same old high caliber hockey.
What do you find the biggest difference between junior and minor or midget or just minor hockey in general is?
Yeah, I think when you look at a jump from any level, it's obviously the maturity level. That's not to say, someone at a lower level isn't more mature than, everybody has their different paths, but you definitely see the maturity, and it's not even just off the ice, but on the ice, the decision making, the way they carry the puck and carry themselves overall. It's just, it's a different level when you go to the NHL and then, you go down the ladder to junior and minor hockey. So, you look at a player that just comes into the OHL and then you look at them leave as an overager. You can see that difference in their style and their gameplay and how they carry themselves. So I think that's the biggest difference. And it's exciting to see a player obviously go through that transition and then hopefully come out on the other end as a better player and as a better person than when they started at that level.
Yeah, that's kind of like the old quote, as the game you move on in the game, the players get better with you.
Yeah.
So when you're breaking into the industry or breaking in with the Sting, what was some of the learning points you had coming in working with Sarnia?
Yeah, so the learning points is definitely, you learn all these things when you are ready to go to the next level and you have all these skill sets, but you also have to understand that, you don't know everything. So I think at first, while I had a pretty good grasp of scouting and analytics and all these different parts of hockey operations, there was still a lot for me to learn, and it was a bit of a curve at first. So just being, willing to learn and will at some point say, this isn't the right thing, or I don't know this, and reaching out for help. So I think that was a big lesson. Also, don't be afraid in your own, be confident in your own abilities. Whether it's whatever you're doing, it could be even down to game day or it's part of the business or hockey operations, whatever you're into. You're there for a reason, and obviously somebody sees something in you. So don't be afraid to, put yourself out there and be confident in your abilities. But as I said, at the same time, know your limitations and work to, progress overall in whatever area that you're working.
All right, we're gonna get into a little COVID talk. How have you been throughout this COVID break?
I mean, as anyone involved in hockey, I'm missing the game, and that side of it sucks. But at the end of the day, you have to understand what it is, and there's a reason you're stuck, and everybody wants to be safe. And I've taken the time to spend some time with my family here in Newfoundland, so that's nice, and being able to see my immediate family a little more than I'm usually tied up in different projects and whatnot. So. But obviously, I can't wait to get back in the rinks and get back to doing what we love, and yeah, it's exciting to think about getting back into that routine.
Yeah. Now, are you watching? I know what I'll do sometimes just put on an old hockey game. Are you doing that? But when you're watching it, are you looking at it like as a fan, or are you looking at it and going, "Wow, that player should have did that"? Like, still, you can't turn that. Looking at the different side of the game.
Yeah, so people talk about that when you progress in hockey, and I remember a few people when starting out early on, they said you're not going to view the game the same way. If I look at a playoff game from years ago, some of those were playing on Sportsnet and whatnot. You still enjoy it as a fan, but there's always that part of you that's breaking down a player or looking at systems or whatever you're doing. So to sum it all up, I'm definitely not viewing it the same way I would have, say, when I was 12 or 13 years old, but it's still amazing to watch these players, and you're still a fan of the game no matter what level you go to. So I try not to analyze it too much, but I guess it's a habit at this point.
Yeah, when I had Daryl Belfry on, he was saying that it stopped complete, like it changed. And what he noticed really is that when you're watching one player, it changes the game completely to watching the whole team. Do you notice the same thing?
Definitely, yeah, and I think that might be even more so after starting stats coach, because you're looking at one player in particular if you're breaking them down. So when I pinpoint a player in whatever game I'm watching, sometimes you have to how do I say it, almost trick yourself into saying, okay, you have to watch everybody. You got to look at the game as a whole, and it's a tendency that you kind of learn to manage over time, but I still enjoy watching games, and even if you're just watching one player, especially at the highest level, it's exciting to watch them and break down their game in that capacity.
Yeah. All right. We're coming up on time here, so here's the last question I got for you. What would be your biggest piece of advice for somebody looking to break into the sports world?
For the biggest piece of advice, I would say is, just be yourself and put yourself out there. Like I said, I started off in senior hockey. I did a little bit of game day operations in the OHL level, but that opportunity brought more connections, and then I went to junior B and junior A, and eventually I went up to the OHL, and I also had a stop in the ECHL with the Newfoundland Growlers there last year. So just putting yourself out there and making as many connections as possible, and not just for the sake of making a connection, but for learning from them, and really expressing your desire to meet with them and discuss things with them. And people really appreciate that, and I think that's the best advice I can give is just put yourself out there and make those connections, and and you never know, they might need you, and in reverse you might need them someday. So it's good just to learn from people, and if you're willing to do that and put yourself out there and make that phone call when maybe you just want to send a text message or an email, that extra bit of effort will go a long way, and people realize that, and you never know, you might get an opportunity out of it.
All right. Now, just so people know, where can they find the Hockey Minds podcast?
Yeah, so on Twitter, it's at Hockey Minds Pod. It's on Spotify, Apple, Anchor. Some episodes are on SoundCloud. Pretty much anywhere that you listen to the podcast, you can find it. But the Twitter is the base of it, and if you just follow at Hockey Minds Pod, you can find most of the information there.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you for coming on, Ryan. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right.